If you keep explaining yourself to someone who already made up their mind about you, you're not being loyal, you're being used. Let me tell you this. If they cared, they'd show up, they'd call, they'd fight for you. But if they don't, stop watering a dead plant, darling. Your love is too expensive for someone who treats you like an option. Now sit up. You're about to learn the 8 cold signs they never cared. And what to do next. There comes a time in life when you've got to stop romanticizing potential. If they treat you like a placeholder, not a priority, it's time to wake up, not wait up. Let's talk about it. 8 behaviors of people who don't actually care about you, even if they say they do. They never initiate, only respond. That might seem like a small thing, something you could overlook, especially when you're wearing your heart on your sleeve. But let me tell you something honest, and maybe even a little hard to hear. If someone only responds when you reach out, you're not in a relationship. You're in a performance, and you're the only one on stage. Think about your day. You wake up, and they're on your mind. So you text them good morning with a little heart. You wait. Hours pass. They reply with hey. No energy. No enthusiasm. No warmth. But you tell yourself, at least they replied. You see? That's not love. That's a bare minimum breadcrumb. And darling, you are not a pigeon. You're a queen. And queens don't survive on crumbs. Let me ask you this. Have they ever reached out just to ask how your day was going? Have they ever called you at 2 p.m. just to say, I saw something that reminded me of you? No? Then maybe it's time you stop fighting for a spot in someone's life who doesn't even notice when you go silent. You see, initiation is more than action. It's intention. When someone doesn't initiate, they're telling you in the clearest language, you're not a priority. And listen closely. If you're not a priority, you're an option. And that should shake you. Look at your friendships. You have people who call you out of the blue and say, let's grab coffee, I miss you. You have that one friend who remembers your exam dates or sends you memes at midnight just to make you smile. That's what effort looks like. That's what real connection feels like. It feels warm, it feels wanted, it feels mutual. Now let's flip the script. Imagine you stop texting first, just for 1 week. Would they notice? Would they check on you? Or would they move on like your silence means nothing? You're scared to try it because deep down you already know the answer. Let's go deeper. Picture yourself in a burning building. You're screaming, you're texting, you're calling, but they're sitting outside watching the smoke and only move when you scream louder. That's what emotional one-sidedness feels like. You keep initiating love, concern, support, attention, and they just respond when and if it suits them. That's not a connection. That's a control dynamic. And you've been lied to long enough. You deserve someone who picks up the phone first, who says, I haven't heard from you, and that doesn't sit right with me. You deserve someone who thinks of you during their lunch break, who sends you songs that remind them of you, who checks in before you check out. You deserve someone who initiates, not because they have to, but because they want to. Do not confuse someone being available when convenient for them with someone invested consistently in you. There's a world of difference between the two. And knowing that difference will save you years of heartbreak. You are not a second thought. You are not someone who deserves love on a delay. If someone values you, they won't wait for you to light the fire. They'll be the one bringing the match. If they never initiate, but always respond, you are their background noise, not their favorite song. And remember, if your presence doesn't move them, your absence should. They disappear when you need them most. Not when things are good. Not when you're laughing at the movies or dancing in the kitchen. No. They vanish when life hits you the hardest. When your world starts falling apart and you need just one person to say, I'm here. But instead, you get silence. Silence so loud it screams the truth you've been avoiding. They were never really there for you. They were there for the good parts, for the sunshine. But when the storm came, they chose shelter over standing beside you. Imagine this. You've just had the worst day of your life. Maybe you lost someone. Maybe you failed at something you gave your whole soul to. Maybe your mental health is unraveling and you're barely hanging on. So you pick up your phone. You hesitate. You hope. And then you send that message. Can we talk? And hours pass. No reply. No call. Just seen. Just ignored. Just gone. And in that moment, you realize they were never your safe place. You were just their convenience. You know what real care looks like? It looks like the friend who calls you, even when you say you're fine, because they know you're lying. It looks like the person who shows up at your doorstep with coffee, with food, with open arms, and no agenda. It looks like being there, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's not. But the one you thought would be there, they disappear. They have excuses, don't they? Oh, I was busy. I didn't know it was that serious. I thought you needed space. And you sit there blaming yourself, thinking maybe you asked for too much. No love. You didn't ask for too much, you asked the wrong person. Let me take you into another scene. You're sick. Not just a cold. Bedridden, fragile, weak. And you post something on your story just to distract yourself. Minutes later, your inbox is full of replies from strangers, but not a single word from the one who says they care. That's not care. That's a mask. Because when people love you, they don't watch you suffer. They rush in to help. Think about who stood by you when you were broke, when you were heartbroken, when you had nothing to give. That's your lesson. You've been conditioned to accept absence as normal, to romanticize people who come and go like the weather. But listen, love doesn't flake. Loyalty doesn't vanish. And the real ones don't disappear when life gets ugly. They get closer. They dig deeper. They ask harder questions. Let me give you another picture. You're standing at a bus stop in the rain, soaked, phone in hand, calling them. You need a ride. You need help. They don't answer. Again. And as that cold wind hits your face, you realize if someone can sleep peacefully knowing you're in pain, they were never your person. And yet, you forgive them. You make excuses. They must be busy. They're going through something too. But if it's always you pouring and never them refilling, that's not a connection. It's emotional starvation. And you're starving while they're full of your kindness. Care isn't tested when things are fun. It's tested when you break. When you're down to your last breath, your last tear, your last bit of hope. And the people you thought would hold your hand suddenly have theirs in their pockets. Don't ignore that. That's not love. That's absence dressed in false promises. Because people who care, they arrive. They don't say, call me if you need me. They just show up without being asked. Your wins don't matter to them. You could be climbing the highest mountain in your life, finally getting that promotion you fought for, launching your dream business, healing from trauma, or simply waking up every day with courage. And instead of hearing, I'm proud of you, you hear silence. Or worse, a half-hearted cool, followed by them changing the subject. That silence, that lack of enthusiasm, that's not love, that's emotional starvation. And you're dining with people who never learned how to celebrate anyone but themselves. You deserve someone who claps when you win, not someone who turns their head because they're too busy comparing or competing. Think about that for a second. Think about how many times you dimmed your light because you knew they wouldn't handle your shine. You didn't want them to feel less than, so you shrank. You downplayed your success. Oh, it's nothing, just a small step. But inside, you were exploding with joy and you had no one to share it with. That's not love. That's emotional exile. Imagine you studied all night for weeks, pulled through breakdowns, stayed up with caffeine and anxiety, and you finally passed your exam. You send them a message, glowing with pride. I did it. And what do they say? Nice. One word. One flat, dry word that sucks the air out of your celebration. And you sit there thinking, was I expecting too much? No, you weren't. You were expecting the bare minimum from someone who can't even meet you there. True support doesn't feel jealous. It feels inspired. It doesn't shrink when you rise. It rises with you. Seem like your biggest fan. And if they're not, then maybe you've confused proximity with partnership. There are people who only feel close to you when you're struggling, because your pain makes them feel needed. But your power, your growth, that makes them uncomfortable. Suddenly, you're not the girl who needs them anymore. Suddenly, you're evolving, and they don't know how to love that version of you. The version that doesn't shrink, doesn't beg, doesn't stay small to make others feel big. Let me give you another example. You land your dream job. You're on your way to becoming everything you prayed for. You tell them, excited, hoping they'll celebrate. Instead, they go quiet. Maybe they say, must be nice, or hope it's not too stressful. Subtle digs, hidden envy, but no genuine joy. That's not support. That's silent sabotage. If someone can't celebrate you, they're secretly resenting you. And resentment in silence is poison to any relationship. You don't need someone who only loves your wounds. You need someone who also loves your wisdom, your growth, your elevation. Someone who can handle your sparkle without trying to dim it. Because your light doesn't threaten the right people, it excites them. Let it. That's your sign, that's your clarity, that's the universe showing you who's really for you. You've outgrown people who clap only when you cry. You've outgrown those who only come close when you're broken. You need people who dance with you when you win, who post your success like it's their own, who scream, "That's my girl," when you walk across the stage, even if the stage is just you surviving another day with grace. Your wins are sacred. Your joy is sacred. Stop inviting people to your victories who never showed up to your battles. They always gaslight your feelings. And it starts so quietly that you almost don't notice it. At first, it's little comments. "You're too sensitive." Or, "That didn't even happen like that." You pause. You question yourself. You start to wonder, maybe I did overreact. Maybe it's just me. And that's exactly what they want. For you to doubt your reality, question your intuition, and silence your voice. Because once they make you believe your feelings are invalid, they control the story. Picture this. You finally open up. You finally have the courage to say, "That hurt me." You're not angry, just honest. But instead of empathy, they smirk. They sigh. They say, "You're so dramatic." Or worse, "You always ruin everything with your emotions." And just like that, they shift the blame from what they did to how you reacted. And you begin to shrink. You go quiet. You stop expressing. You bury your hurt. Because expressing it only brings more confusion. This is not love. This is emotional manipulation wrapped in false calmness. A person who gaslights you doesn't want peace, they want power. And they'll get it by making you feel like you're crazy for simply having a heart. Think of a friend who constantly cancels on you last minute. You tell them, "It hurts when you do that." And instead of owning it, they say, "Wow, you're so clingy. I didn't know I was responsible for your happiness." You see what they did? They flipped the script. Made you the problem. And now you're apologizing for feeling, for being human. That is how they erase your voice. One twisted conversation at a time. Now let's shift to relationships. You find out they lied. You bring it up. You're calm, collected, and factual. But instead of truth, you're imagining things. You're overthinking. You're insecure. And you start to spiral. You replay the conversation 10 times. You check your tone. You question your worth. And by the end of it, you're not angry anymore. You're ashamed for even bringing it up. That shame, that doubt, that hesitation to speak up again, that's the damage, not the argument. The manipulation. That's how they keep you quiet, small, controlled. They don't have to raise their voice. They just lower the value of your emotions until you no longer trust them. You are shamed. That's the damage. That's hesitation to speak up again. That's the damage. That's how they keep you quiet, small, controlled. They lure you into a battle. They make you do something that you don't. Imagine being in a room full of people, and the one person who's supposed to love you makes you feel like your pain is inconvenient, like your tears are overreactions, like your boundaries are accusations. That is not love. That is emotional warfare, and you're the battleground. But here's the truth no gaslighter wants you to know. Your feelings are valid. Every single one. If something feels wrong, it's not because you're too sensitive. It's because something is wrong. It's not because you're too sensitive. It's because something is wrong. If your feelings are valid, every single one, if something feels wrong, it's not because you're too sensitive. It's because something is wrong. And when someone truly loves you, they won't play mind games to protect their ego. They'll pause, listen, and say, I didn't realize I hurt you. Let's talk about it. You don't need someone who explains your pain away. You need someone who sits in it with you, who sees it, acknowledges it, and makes room for healing. Keep someone comfortable. You were not made to be silenced in the name of love. You were made to express, to grow, to feel deeply and fiercely without being labeled as too much. If someone makes you feel like your emotions are a burden, it's because they don't have the depth to carry real connection. Real love never gaslights, it guides. It doesn't manipulate, it mirrors your truth back to you with compassion. They only call when they need something. Not when you're celebrating, not when your heart is full, not when you're finally catching your breath from the weight you've carried for months. No, they call when they want something. A favor, a ride, some emotional comfort, money, your energy, your time. Suddenly you matter, but only as long as you're useful. And the moment they get what they want, they vanish. Like your existence was just a transaction, not a connection. Think about it. When was the last time they called just to say, how are you really doing? Not to ask for anything, not to take, just to give, just to be there. You're probably struggling to remember, aren't you? Because they don't show up for your life. They show up for your benefits. And that's not love. That's usage wrapped in false affection. Imagine you've been through a rough week. You're emotionally drained, physically exhausted, maybe even questioning your worth. And your phone lights up. It's them. For a moment, you feel seen, you feel remembered. You answer with a flicker of hope. But 2 minutes in, it starts. Hey, could you do me a quick favor? No. How are you? No, I've missed you. Just the same pattern. Need, ask, leave. And every time you help, every time you give, in your heart whispers, maybe this time it's different. But deep down, you know, it's not. You're not the friend, the lover, the companion. You're the supplier, the therapist, the emergency contact when the life is inconvenient. And when your world starts falling apart, you get silence. You get, I've been busy. You get replaced by distractions and excuses. Let me take you into another moment. You finally accomplish something big. Maybe it's a job promotion, launching your dream, a creative victory that took years to build. You post about it, you wait. Days go by, no message, no celebration. But the moment they need something, they're the first to knock on your door, pretending like they've been around the whole time. That's not a relationship. That's exploitation in disguise. You were taught to be kind, to be available, to be generous with your time. But nobody told you that kindness without boundaries invites people who only know how to consume, not connect. And now, you're exhausted. Not because you're doing too much, but because you're doing it for people who wouldn't lift a finger if the roles were reversed. A real connection doesn't keep a scorecard, but it also doesn't keep draining one side dry. It's mutual effort, mutual support, mutual presence. Not someone who disappears for months and then says, hey stranger, like you were just waiting for their return. Your soul is not a convenience store. Your heart is not a 24/7 service line. It's okay to help people, but it's not okay to let people treat you like a vending machine. Push a button, get what they want, and walk away. Ask yourself, if you stopped giving, would they still come around? If the answer is no, then you already have your answer. People who truly care won't just contact you when they're in need. They'll remember the small things. They'll show up just to hear your laugh, to witness your growth, to support your silence, even when you don't ask for help. You deserve relationships that are rooted in presence, not purpose. You deserve people who think of you not because they need something, but because they miss you, value you, and genuinely care about your soul. Because you're not a backup plan. You're not a free service. You're not a stepping stone. You are the destination, and the right people will treat you like it every single time. They're not afraid to lose you because they never really had you, not your mind, not your heart, not your soul. They had access to your time, your energy, your body, your kindness, but they never earned it. They were standing next to you, but never truly with you. And now, when you pull away, when your silence stretches longer than usual, when your absence starts to speak louder than your presence ever did, they don't panic. They don't chase. They don't break down. Why? Because they were never invested enough to care if you stayed. It's a brutal truth, isn't it? We give people the most sacred parts of ourselves, our vulnerability, our loyalty, our late night thoughts, our dreams, our fears. And we think that means they see us. But some people don't fall in love with you. They fall in love with your convenience. They fall in love with how easy you make their life. And the moment you stop being easy, emotionally, mentally, physically, they detach like you were always optional. Think about the times you begged for their attention, even if you didn't use words. Your texts, your effort, your check-ins, that was you holding on. That was you saying, I matter too. But they always responded like nothing was urgent. Like you'll always be there. Like your heart has no breaking point. And every time you threaten to leave, they call you bluff. Not because they were brave, but because they didn't believe your absence was real enough to miss. You see, people who truly love you will panic at the thought of losing you. They'll fight, they'll cry, they'll fix what's broken. But someone who never really had you in their heart, they'll let you walk away like it's just another Tuesday. No closure, no questions, no resistance. Because your presence was a bonus, not a necessity. Picture this. You've been in a one-sided relationship for months. You constantly try to make things work. You adjust your schedule. You tolerate the silence. You explain your needs over and over again. And one day you finally get tired. You stop texting, you stop calling, you stop showing up. You wait, hoping they'll notice the shift. But they don't. Days pass, weeks, nothing. That's when it hits you. They were never afraid to lose. And it hurts. It cuts deeper than betrayal. Because it's not just that they didn't fight for you. It's that they never even saw your worth to begin with. You could be the most loyal person in their life and still feel like a placeholder. You could give them the kind of love that poets write about, and they'll treat it like background noise. But here's what you need to remember. Your value does not decrease just because someone failed to recognize it. Their inability to see your worth says everything about them and nothing about you. You are not forgettable. You are not replaceable. You are not too much. You just gave your love to someone who never knew how to hold it. You deserve someone who's terrified to lose you. Someone who looks at your silence like a storm they can't survive. Someone who feels your absence like a missing heartbeat. Someone who doesn't wait until you're gone to realize what they had. They know it, while they still have it. The ones who don't fear losing you are the ones who never deserved you in the first place. Because if someone can let you go without a fight, they were never truly with you to begin with. And no matter how much you tried, no matter how deeply you loved, you can't force someone to care. You can't water dead roots and expect them to grow. They say when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. But the truth is, some of us don't want to believe it. We want to rewrite the story, repaint the red flags as passion, and hold on to the idea of who someone could be, not who they've always been. There's a quiet power in letting go, not because you've given up, but because you finally realized you deserve peace more than you deserve confusion. You deserve clarity over chaos. You deserve someone who doesn't need to be reminded to care. You shouldn't have to fight just to feel seen. You shouldn't have to shrink just to be tolerated. And you definitely shouldn't have to keep proving your worth to people who were never qualified to hold your heart in the first place. Let this truth echo in your soul. Your absence will teach them what your presence never could. When you stop overextending, stop over-explaining, and stop over-loving people who are emotionally unavailable, something magical happens. You don't become cold. You become clear. You don't become bitter. You become brave. You stop waiting for closure from people who were never open to you. You stop chasing love that was never rooted in respect. And you walk away not because you're weak, but because you're finally strong enough to choose you. You're not here to be an option. You're not here to audition for someone's loyalty. You are not a backup plan. You are not the maybe in someone's someday. You are the whole damn miracle. And if someone can't see that, let them watch from the sidelines while you rise. Remember what Steve Maraboli once said, if you're not being treated with love and respect, check your price tag. Maybe you've marked yourself down. It's you who tells people what you're worth. Get off the clearance rack and get behind the glass where they keep the valuables. Your time, your love, your presence, these are not small things. You are not replaceable. You are not a temporary thrill. You are a lifetime kind of soul. And it's time you stop offering it to people who only show up with empty hands and even emptier intentions. And yes, walking away might feel like the hardest thing you've ever done. But staying where you're not valued, that's what's truly soul-crushing. The strongest souls aren't the ones who never felt pain. They're the ones who chose to rise anyway. The ones who refused to let betrayal harden them. The ones who turned rejection into redirection. Let every tear you shed become your fire. Let every sleepless night build your backbone. Let every moment of doubt carve a space for your evolution. You are not what they couldn't love. You are what they couldn't handle. You are the storm, the calm, the fire, the ocean. You are everything they pretended not to need until you were no longer available. So now, it's time to stop shrinking in rooms you were meant to shine in. It's time to stop waiting for apologies that will never come and closure that was never theirs to give. It's time to glow unapologetically. Speak loudly, love yourself fiercely, and walk away boldly, not just from people, but from patterns that have dimmed your light for far too long. Because in the end, real love doesn't leave you guessing. Real love is certain. It's consistent. It shows up not only when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. So until you find that. Be the love you never received. Be the loyalty you always gave. And most of all, be the kind of soul who knows you were always enough. You just needed the courage to act like it.